What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I want to talk about something that's been going around the rumor mill lately, and that is, of course, the possible return of the godfather of the MCU himself, Tony Stark, RDJ Iron Man, back for Avengers 5, Avengers Secret Wars. And I think it'd be cool to talk about how is that even possible, considering how iconic he left that role and how dear and precious that role is. How are they going to make this happen? But before we jump into that, please consider hitting that like button, subscribe to the channel. It'll be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So I don't know if you guys are up to date with the rumor, all the rumors and speculations and behind the scenes stuff. But when it comes to, and potential spoilers, by the way, for Deadpool and Wolverine, but when it comes to the variants, just like with RDJ, Hugh Jackman's Logan, that is a very iconic death. People hold that very, very precious to their hearts, and they do not want that to be altered or messed with in any way, shape, or form. So from what I'm hearing, and again, this is total rumor territory, speculation, the way they're going to go about it is that the variant that we're going to meet in Deadpool Wolverine, up until a certain point, lived the same life, the same timeline of the Wolverine that we grew up with all the X-Men movies, Logan, and everything like that. But one event in his life was different than the one that we followed. So I know that sounds confusing. So, like, for example, what I'm hearing, potential... if you all remember in X-Men 2, when Wolverine, Logan comes back to X-Mansion, he is told by Professor X if he could babysit the child, and then that's when Stryker attacks, and that's a very, very awesome, iconic scene of that film. But for this variant, he wasn't there. He was getting drunk somewhere at a bar. He wasn't there to take care of the kids, and Stryker actually did what he came there to do and to wipe out the mutants and at the school. Again, I don't know if that is true. Like I said, it's completely speculatory, but apparently this is the worst variant of Wolverine in existence. And of course, it's Deadpool. He's going to pick the very worst variant of Wolverine to accompany him on whatever they got going on in Deadpool Wolverine. Cannot wait for that movie. It's going to be spectacular. We only got a few months to go, and I think that'll be a cool aspect if they do go that route. But since they're doing that for Hugh Jackman, they're most likely going to be doing that for RDJ as well, because like I said, they don't want to mess with the snap. They talked about that multiple times. It's a very, very precious thing to Marvel Studios. They spent 10 years building up to that moment. They're not going to trash it now. But I was going back thinking of events that our Tony Stark went through and things that could have gone differently that could ultimately cause the variant that we're going to meet in Avengers 5, Secret Wars, and whatever he signs on for if he's actually coming back. What caused him to go on the path that he went on versus the one that we followed. So the first thing I can think of is, of course, what if Tony Stark never stopped selling weapons? At the ending of Iron Man 1, when he escaped the cave, he had a whole press conference, and he's like, you know what, no more weapons, Stark Industries. We're going to change our ways. We're going to do something completely different. But what if this Tony Stark had the exact opposite effect? It made him more vengeful. It made him more bitter, to the point where he wanted to actually create even stronger weapons to attack the ones that attacked him and kidnapped him and whatnot. It completely went down a separate role. Obviously, that is starting the path for a villain, not really a superhero. But that'd be a nice little tie back to Iron Man 1. They'd be like, that Iron Man perspective of the events that happened to him in the cave were completely different than the one that we followed throughout the MCU. Another really cool one I think that they can pull from is, of course, the ending of Avengers 1, when Iron Man grabs a nuke, goes through the wormhole, throws it at the Chitauri ship, completely blows it up, and then that's how Thanos eventually finds out who Iron Man is, because the man threw a nuke at one of his ships. But what if in this universe, the Tony Stark one, what if he was like a coward and he didn't get the nuke and he just dipped and left New York to get destroyed? He'd have to live with that grief and that guilt and like live with himself to know that he could have done something to save New York, but he let that nuke blow everything up. Or what if he didn't get it in time and the nuke went off before he got in the wormhole, or if he didn't make it in the wormhole, which I think they did something like that in What If, which is how he ended up on Sakaar. But nonetheless, that would be a nice one to pull from if that whole event at the ending of Avengers 1 was completely different from what we are familiar with. Another cool thing I think they can pull from is, of course, with Avengers Age of Ultron with the whole suit of armor around the world. What if it actually worked? What if Ultron actually worked and he had all the Ultron bots just like we saw in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? And what if that whole plan, worked and he became, from what we know, Superior Iron Man, which from my understanding isn't the best guy in the world. But what if that was the route he took? He was able to create the suit of armor around the world. Avengers were able to take a step back and it completely changed the course of that would completely change the course of the entire MCU. So that alone would be a very, very interesting concept. Another one I can think of is, of course, when it comes to Avengers Infinity War, what if Tony Stark never left Earth and never went to Titan, had that fight with Thanos amongst the Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man? What if he stayed on Earth and he was fighting on Wakanda with Cap and Thor and Black Widow? And what if they actually won? What if they actually won on Wakanda? Because the whole concept of Infinity War, for the most part, is the reason why they lost is because the Avengers weren't together. They weren't united. They were all separated. They weren't on the best of terms. And they do the best work when they are together. But in that movie, they were separated, hence Thanos winning. But if he possibly stayed on Earth and then went to Wakanda and fought alongside Black Panther and Captain America, maybe they could have stood a chance in defeating Thanos before he even did the snap. I think that, of course, is another, interesting alternate timeline that could have happened. And, of course, the very, very last thing I can think of is the obvious one is the snap. From Avengers Endgame. What if it never happened? What if a different hero like Thor, or what if Captain Marvel did it, or what if Thanos actually did the snap again and he decided to be cruel and snap away everybody else except Tony Stark? So Tony Stark had to live the rest of his days, however long he would have at that point, by himself on Earth with the guilt and regret of not being able to stop Thanos for the second time, and he was completely alone. And then that would open up the door for possibly the TVA to get involved, open up a time portal, take him wherever he wants to go, and then we meet that Tony Stark, and that's the one we follow. Any of these outcomes, I think, will be fantastic and very interesting and kind of change things up. And it'll be really cool to see possibly like an evil variant of Iron Man, just something different for RDJ to do, and that would just bring more interest to the character, which, again, we don't really need more interest. I think the entire world's going to go crazy if Iron Man decides to come back. But it would be cool to see him take a different approach on it. But you guys let me know down below if there's any events that I possibly missed throughout the MCU that could be altered for as far as Iron Man goes. Let me know down below in the comments, and I definitely want to hear from you guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time to check out this video. Again, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time.